demand. So fiscal policy is government altering the level of taxation and spending to manipulate aggregate demand. Right? So I want demand to be more. I want demand to be less. If there is a recession, then if there is a recession, then I want demand to be more, right? If there is inflation, then I want demand to be less. Now, I can do that by either altering the level of taxation or altering the level of spending. Now, if I want demand to be more, if I want an expansionary fiscal policy, what am I going to do with government spending? Increase it or decrease it? Increase it. So if I want an expansionary fiscal policy, then I'm going to want to increase aggregate demand, right? By increasing government spending. Now, when would I want an expansionary fiscal policy? Recession or inflation? Recession. Recession. Right? So in recession, I want an expansionary fiscal policy. I can do that by increasing the amount of government spending. I also could do it by manipulating taxes. Now, what would I have to do if I manipulated taxes? If I want an expansionary fiscal policy because I have a recession, what would I do to the level of taxation? I would cut taxes. So then if I have a recession and I wanted to implement an expansionary fiscal policy, what I would do is increase government spending and or reduce taxation. That's an expansionary fiscal policy, correct? Right? Now, if I wanted a contractionary fiscal policy, what would I do?
The opposite.
That's pretty good. I would do the opposite. Now, when do I want a contractionary fiscal policy? When I think demand is too great. When aggregate demand is beyond the full employment level of GDP and resulting in higher prices and inflation, I think demand is too great. Now I want a contractionary fiscal policy. A contractionary fiscal policy is that I want to increase taxes and or reduce government spending. And by doing that, then I can manipulate aggregate demand to bring it to a level that will ensure full employment. So if I'm a Keynesian, I say, well, gee, this is a terrible thing here. And yes, I recognize that over the long run, that, wages and prices will eventually fall, and this will all self-correct. But since I'm a Keynesian, I say in the long run, we're all dead. And there's going to be a tremendous amount of suffering in the long run. So what I advocate for is an expansionary fiscal policy. An increase in tax, or an increase in government spending and a reduction in taxation. And that's exactly what happened last year. I mean, the stimulus package that you hear about and people complain about basically is it's a classic, not a classical, but a classic expansionary fiscal policy, which was intended to make this go back to here. Right? Now, okay, I can do that. Cameron, just another 2 minutes and I promise you I'll send you on your way, right? Because then we'll pick up with these, because you have a big hockey game to watch, do you? You have the shirt on now.
I know. But it's like...
Oh, you have to study for that. That's going to be hard, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. Now you have to take these cookies home with you for that. Okay, so now, okay. I have besides fiscal policy, I also have monetary policy. Now, monetary policy is manipulating the size of the money supply. So with monetary policy, you're going to manipulate the size of the money supply. Right? So we're either going to expand the size of the money supply or contract the size of the money supply. Yes?
And that's a monetarist is separate from a Keynesian, correct?
Right.
Okay.
A monetarist, even though the monetarist would say that money only matters, still doesn't want to do anything with it. Right? They still don't want, they would say that, look, the only thing that matters is money, right? But we don't want to manipulate money to fix the economy. We don't think that's productive, right? For numerous reasons. So monetarists, even though they think, well, look, unless you monetarize whatever you're going to do, it's not going to work anyways, still don't want to use they don't want to use monetary policy in a discretionary manner, and that's what we're talking about. A discretionary manner means that we identify a problem and then we propose a solution to that problem, right? Now, monetary policy is manipulating the size of the money supply. Let's just do this real fast, Cameron. All right. The way that works is this way. If we have a recession like this, if we have a recession like this, right, then we say, all right, we don't have enough demand. We want to stimulate aggregate demand by using monetary policy. What we do is expand the money supply. I don't put this on the board after school tomorrow. We expand the money supply. And when we expand the money supply, that drives nominal interest rates down. Right? It might also drive real interest rates down. At least in the short run, it might drive real interest rates down. And when that occurs, that's going to result in more investment spending and potentially more consumption spending. Right? So if it's C plus I plus X plus G, right? If I expand the money supply, what do I get? Lower interest rates. Lower interest rates result in more consumption and investment spending, and that increases aggregate demand. Right? Now, in terms of that, there's a whole big deal behind that. I mean, and we talked about monetary policy, right? And that's, for one reason or another, every year that's the worst test we have, monetary policy. And we said the bottom line is, that monetary policy is manipulating the size of the money supply. But when we went through and talked about that, we talked about, okay, what is money? On that AP test, there'll be questions about that. What's money? M1. What's M1? Liquidity. So you want to take a look at that. Okay. What about banking? How do banks create money? There'll be questions about that, right? I mean, we kind of just here said, okay, now we've got the money supply. We took a long time to establish the money supply. Then we talked about banking, how banking connects to the money supply. And then eventually, once we did that, we said, okay, it's the Federal Reserve, that's another thing there'll be questions about on the test about, who manipulates the banking system in order to manipulate the money supply. That is going to eventually do that. Right? Now, just real quick, and this I promise this will be it. Okay. Now, if we have this situation where we have inflation, right? Now, what we want to do is reduce the size of the money supply. If we reduce the size of the money supply, then interest rates go up, and when interest rates go up, then the components of aggregate demand go down. Now, this is what we're going to do. When we come after school tomorrow, we'll take fiscal policy, stretch it out to the budget, and we'll take monetary policy, and we'll go to the money market, and we'll put that into context, the money market, and then maybe we'll even talk about, the foreign sector a little bit too. But I'm going to take a look at that. Now I'm going to put on Edline. I already have Roughonomics on there, but if you go to Roughonomics, all the graphs you should know. They have one from I put the micro on there already, but they have a micro and macro. They take it through there pretty systematically, and they have little explanations. So if there's something, even like you said banking, you don't understand, I don't remember banking. Well, you can get on there and you can work through it, and they'll explain banking to you. You can look in your textbook as well. So we'll try to do more on this tomorrow. And in class tomorrow, we'll also do some more of the micro things. All right? All right. We'll see what happens. Does anybody want to have mine here? Anybody want a cupcake?
Wait, you're going to be there.